Welcome back to another edition of the High School Football Podcast on 97 through the Fan. And a big thank you yet again to Todd Durkin for letting us use his wonderful studio here in Scripps Ranch. Again, thanks for the hospitality, everything Todd has done to help this podcast keep going. And got another special guest with us. Top Dawg's back. Welcome back, Top Dawg. TD, the other TD, if you will.
Thank you for having me. Big shout out to the other, from one TD to another TD. Todd, thank you for allowing us to use be gracious enough to let us use your studio. I'm looking around. All I see is football iconic stuff from everybody from LaDainian Tomlinson to, man, this is impressive in here. I just got to say,
a lot of Drew Brees stuff. Yep. Obviously Todd from his quarterback playing days at William and Mary with the Tribe helmet behind us. Again, we're going to have to film the whole thing eventually, but at this point, just you and I right now on the mic with the blue lights hanging around, which is kind of fun. So let's talk about some of the games last week. Obviously, so there were some surprises. There were some, not necessarily surprises in terms of the overall, who won and who lost, but like the score.
Right.
But let's start with the game of the week last week. Carlsbad at Mater Dei. It was the game of the week. Went to a couple of overtimes. Carlsbad wins it on a left tackle eligible play, which, by the way, it's not just, when I first saw the things on Twitter, it seemed like a lot of sour grapes on what happened in the play. I watched the play about 4 times, and every time I watched it, I'm like, that's a false start.
It's absolutely a false start.
That's 100% a false start.
Absolutely.
But it's high school football. We know everything about, not having as many officials this year, so you can't go out and blame the officials. But I don't know how you missed that call, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because nobody covered them anyway. But at the same point, Carlsbad needs a 2-point conversion to beat Mater Dei in double overtime, hard-fought game, a game that I said last week on this podcast was win or go home for Mater Dei if they want to be in the open. And, they still have a small glimmer of hope, I think, to win to make the open division, but they have to beat Lincoln. And if they don't beat Lincoln, they're out. It's over.
Yeah, well, you talk about that small window. Listen, they've had one of the hardest schedules in San Diego County. I don't know anybody who wants to start, with 2 guys that went to the CIF Open Division champions in the last 3 years.
From a team that's going from D3 to D1.
That's a huge leap. So, kudos to John Joyner, Verlaine Batofe, and their staff for getting those guys, up for these big games. And they're knocking on the door. They're right there. They proved it Friday night when they battled Carlsbad. I was watching the game and they fell down early, 21-0. And I'm like, uh-oh, this could be a problem.
Right.
Then the running back / safety gets hurt. I think, what's his name? Goodness gracious, he's going to kill me now. Anyway, he gets hurt. He goes out the game. But the quarterback play, I got to say this. I do want to give a shout out to Dominic Nankill. In my opinion, Dominic outplayed the 5-star quarterback over at Carlsbad, Julian Sayin. He showed me a lot on Friday night. The kid's got a lot of heart, and he almost single-handedly won that game with his legs, making big play after big play after big play. I've watched him play since he was in youth football, and the growth and maturity of the young man getting to this point, he should definitely have more offers, and I think he's got a huge upswing.
Well, that's where he makes his money, per se, is his legs. His ability, and not just to run, like just to get yards, but his ability to just continue rolling the pocket and buy time for his receivers to get open, because it's already difficult to cover the wide receivers at Mater Dei because they have a lot of athletes and they got really good wide receivers in that scheme that Verlaine runs. But at the same time, it's even more difficult to try to cover them for more than 3 seconds.
Yeah.
Because Nankill's running all over the place back there and still making plays with his arm when he runs. Because you see that in the NFL all the time, the knock on running quarterbacks. Well, they don't know how to throw. But Nankill rolls and he's still looking to throw. It's not like he's looking to run every time he gets the ball. And you saw that in their final touchdown to tie the game right before the end of regulation with 8 seconds left. And same thing with the 2-point conversion. On 2-point conversion, he just kind of hucked and hoped that somebody was going to catch it, which is kind of what that play was. It was very lucky in that sense. But, he made his own luck. He made his own play. And, it's tough when you're Mater Dei, because here's the thing. If you're Mater Dei, you're upset that the CIF rankings is the way that determines the playoffs.
Right.
Because if Cal Prep still does it, you get credit for playing Cathedral, who, by the way, their rating went up after losing to Centennial 42-7.
It's Centennial.
But they're played a team in Cathedral that's playing teams that are big out of town. They're going to get good power rating numbers. They're playing Carlsbad, who's got Inglewood this week, whose rating is going to go up just by playing Inglewood. but they don't get the same credit in the CIF ranking. So if you're Mater Dei, you're on the outside looking in.
Why don't we save that for the mailbag? Because I think we got a question on Twitter that asked that question about playing out of town teams.
We have a mailbag on that. Plus, I have in front of me the if the predictions for the season and who's going to be in the Open and who's not.
Yeah,
it's based on the Cal Preps predictions, and they're pretty spot on most of the time.
Yeah.
Let's move on to North County Game of the Week. This one was surprising to me because I thought after seeing last week with the debut of Coach Carroll and Texler's back at San Marcos, and it's one of the biggest schools in San Diego, and you're thinking, and then they go out and they put up a ton of points on Rancho Bernardo. Oh, look, San Marcos might be coming back to the days when they had Kyle Phillips on their team. Remember those teams that they've had? I mean, they've produced
Kyle Phillips.
Think about all the NFL talent that they've had on that roster.
Right.
And so I thought, well, maybe they're coming back. And then Mira Mesa goes up there and beats them. Yeah. And flat just beats them. And Mira Mesa played a really good game. I thought that was surprising. Cal Preps favored Mira Mesa by 3. They won by 7. Yeah. So, I mean, just to go back to it. But, you know, that to me was kind of surprising, but good win for Mira Mesa to bounce back after playing Helix week 1.
Yeah, there's a lot of personal relationships that go there. You know, former head coach at Mira Mesa, Chris Thompson, was really good friends with Jason Texler. And so these programs are extremely familiar with one another. And I thought, you know, Coach Carroll being there was great for the program. It might have been a little too early for everybody to say they're back.
Right.
I mean, I still see a lot of holes in that team. I don't quite think they're what they were when Texler was the head coach.
No. It's going to take time to build up to that point.
But I'll say this, you know, Mira Mesa is one of those teams that you can't overlook. They've got some really great guys on that squad. The quarterback's throwing the ball well. You got Chris Brown over there. They got some dudes. And if you don't pay attention to them and scheme and really get after them, Mira Mesa is going to shock some teams this year.
They're going to be good in their league for sure. I mean, you start looking, you break down the rest of their schedule, and you know, playing a team like Helix. Like I'm always a component in playing at least one team that's out of your league that's going to make you tougher. It's going to make you better. And, you know, Cathedral does it with Centennial. You saw Torrey Pines doing it with, and some of the avocado leagues are doing it with San Clemente. Yeah. Lincoln's going out and playing Bishop Alemany. They're playing Capital Christian, and then they got St. Bonaventure coming up. I mean, they're going out of town. And now a lot of it has to do with the fact that a lot of the top teams in San Diego can't find games in San Diego anymore. But at the same time, it's making them all better. Eastlake played Apple Valley. Apple Valley's they're a big physical football team. It's going to make Eastlake better in the long run. And so you start stacking up all these teams.
I don't know if I agree with that one. I don't know if that's going to make Eastlake better in the long run.
It's going to make them tougher. It's going to make them tougher in the long run.
I don't know about better though.
That makes teams better.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying in theory. I don't know. I think there's a lot of stuff going on down right now at Eastlake.
There's always stuff going on at Eastlake.
It's going to be
it's the same stuff all the time.
It's going to be a struggle. I think for that program for a while.
Yeah, they really can't get out of their own way down there.
Yeah,
I mean it's a shame for the kids because they've had a lot of big time talent roll through.
And they should be the powerhouse of the South. They should. I mean, they get every opportunity, every break, if you will.
Right.
They get more money than any other school down there. So you would think that since they've got all the resources and they go out and get whatever they want, it's the biggest school in the district. That it'd be easy for Eastlake to go out there.
It's
and win.
The biggest head scratcher down there.
It's been that way.
I know, but it
seems like the only guy that ever had success there got fired twice there.
He did get fired twice, but even then, I mean, they had a lot of talent and still couldn't finish it. They had a lot of guys, and they just so that's something that they're gonna have to deal with in house. But them playing Apple Valley is better than them going out and playing Vincent Memorial. No disrespect to them. By the way, Vincent Memorial is gonna have a good year, based on my predictions.
Okay.
But
we'll get to that.
But again, with Mira Mesa, I think Mira Mesa, San Marcos, I think it's a good matchup that they played against each other. And I think to go back and kind of circle in, Mira Mesa playing Helix started off the season. I think it's a great way to start the season for Mira Mesa. Let's talk about Helix. Helix favored by 28 points, really beat up on Otay 52-0 on a Thursday night. They improved to 2-0. Otay still trying to turn the program around with Brad Burton to get it back to where it was. Obviously, a lot of issues in terms of roster and getting kids out to play, and he's taken over what was left as a mess. So it's going to be tough for Otay, but they're not afraid to play anybody. They got Madison and Helix first 2 games of the year. They got a bunch of other games coming up that are going to be tough too. But Helix rolled in a game I thought they would roll in, and they're not the Helix teams of the past where you're like, oh my God, who's ever going to be able to hang with these guys? But they're right back on track and going back to the saying of Helix is Helix.
Well, let me say this. They went out, there was obviously the head coaching change. Robbie moved on. So there's a new head coach and there's a new offensive coordinator. The new offensive coordinator is the head coach for the San Diego Strike Force. He's a spread guy. And so I went out to preseason games, watched him. I watched him against Mira Mesa. To your point, Helix has traditionally been known as a running team. They've always had that one running back.
They would look like they'd run a spread, but they'd shove it down your throat.
Whether it was Christian Washington or Nate, but going back a few years.
Any Noah brothers.
Any of the Noah brothers. They've always had that.
Which they still have one. They still got one.
Yeah, but
the youngest
Puka.
is there.
That's Puka. A little shout out to Puka. That's my dude. But no, when you see him line up 5 wide, and I think Jesse's got a great command of his offense, and I think the ceiling is really high for the kid. He's got a high football IQ. He's working with an offensive coordinator that, has played at really high levels and has coached at really high levels. So some of the concepts they're running over there are really going to confuse the crap out of a lot of defenses in San Diego. The defensive coordinator is going to have a lot of trouble with it.
Well, they also do a really good job of incorporating their tight ends. Yep. They flex them out right wide. They run some tray looks. They put them in tight. Helix has always been able to use a wing too, which creates an extra gap, which is hard to stop if you're a defense, and having to worry about, and then shifting the different wings over to different sides, and all of a sudden you got different different gaps that you have to worry about. So they're going to be a problem. But it's funny. It's everybody was talking about. It's like, oh wow, I don't know if Helix is going to get the same guys, and maybe Helix is dead. But they're off to a 2-0 start, and they've won pretty effortlessly in their first 2 games.
I'll say this. This ain't your daddy's Helix team. Right, those days are gone. But one thing it didn't change is, you're right, Helix is Helix.
We got to take a quick break, real quick, and do a little camera maintenance as well, and dive into some other stuff. When we come back, we're going to talk Poway, Eastlake, the Battle of the Titans, how great Poway is going to be, and we'll also talk about some other notable games. We'll also get you our top 10. Chris Smith, I'm Braden Surprenant. This is the High School Football Podcast. We'll be back real quick. All right, Chris, we took a little bit of a break, had to kind of change some cameras around, which is fine. Wanted to talk about a couple of the last games here before we move on. Poway beat Eastlake 14-6. Madison beat Steele Canyon 35-7. Poway is one of those teams now in D1. A lot of seniors on the team. A team that, if they can run the table, might be knocking at the door at the open division just based on the way their schedule is and based on CIF rankings, Chris. They're a pretty good football team, but they're going to have to get through Ramona this week.
Yeah, they're not beating Ramona. I'm sorry. Ramona Bulldogs, I'll say it right now, I think the best team in D2. But, the coach up the hill, he's got those boys playing hard. I don't think Poway beats Ramona, and I don't think they run the table.
No, they got to get through the next 2 weeks, and after that, they're going to be favored in all of their games. It looks like it might be an 8-2 season for the Poway Titans moving forward.
That's enough to get into the open.
It's not. Even if they run the table, they're like 2 points too short, which is just close. But it'd be interesting. It'd be very exciting. I think they'd rather be the 1 seed or 2 seed in D1 than play in the open.
No, it depends. If a Helix lands in D1, do you want to be a 1 or a 2 seed if you got to face Helix?
You're going to have to play one of those 6 teams anyway.
Mater Dei could be there. Lincoln could be there.
If you want to win a D1 championship, you're going to have to play 2 of the top 6 teams. Yeah. It's going
to be tough for Poway. Now, the one upside on Poway that I've seen is in the secondary, Jonathan Butler. Kid's got 4 picks in 2 games. He keeps this up, he's going to break the section record for interceptions in this season.
City game of the week, Madison beats Steele Canyon. Not surprised by the result, but surprised by the score.
Yeah, I would say. I picked Madison going into that game. I thought they were going to win it. I thought, Steele Canyon was going to have a little bit more out of Major Gibbons.
I agree.
I thought it was going to be a closer scoring game simply because I thought it was going to be a running game.
Correct.
But then again, you got Johnson and Jackson. That's a combination. I talked to you about it, but I don't know how many secondaries it's going to be able to stop Johnson and Jackson.
Well, and they got protection on their line, too. They have time to throw. To go back to the concept we were talking about in the last kind of piece, where it's already difficult to cover those guys, and now you got to cover them a little bit longer because it's not like a jailbreak at the line of scrimmage, which it was in the spring season of 2020 when they were playing all as sophomores.
Right. And those guys got older. They got wiser.
They got a lot of varsity experience under their belt. A lot of
varsity experience. So they've taken their bumps and bruises.
A lot of varsity experience in the Western League. I know. Playing a lot of good teams.
A lot of good teams. Now, I'll say this. I don't... As good as their offense is, I think their defense may be even better. They got the best secondary. Their D-line is solid. Linebacking core led by Barrett. They're good. That's a really solid fundamental football team, and Rick Jackson knows how to coach those boys.
Let's talk about some of the games out of county. San Clemente beat Torrey Pines 28-17. Bishop Alameda beat Lincoln 14-7. Centennial beat Cathedral 42-7. Those are some of the notable games out of county. The one that surprised me the most was Lincoln and Bishop Alameda being a 14-7 game, because both teams scored on their opening drive and then nothing until Bishop Alameda scored with 8 seconds left. I mean, both teams, very talented teams. I thought, I wasn't surprised that Bishop Alameda won, because it's a tough team to beat if you're Lincoln. Especially on the road. That's a long drive on a Friday through a lot of LA traffic that they got to deal with. But the fact that the total score was 21 points was shocking to me.
I don't know. I mean, those teams mirror each other. Those programs mirror each other a lot. A lot of the concept stuff they do on the offensive side of the ball is similar to what they do at Bishop Alameda. A couple years ago, the kid from Cathedral went up there and then came back and then went back up there. The wide receiver, Justice.
Right.
They're so similar that I'm not surprised the game was 14-7. Their execution styles are exactly the same. Their coaching styles are the same. The type of athletes who play are the same. So they've got great DB coverage. They got great secondary at Bishop Alameda. They shut down a lot of the receivers. I'm surprised that Lincoln didn't use Roderick Robinson more and run the ball more and keep the ball on the ground.
Well, he had 186 yards rushing in his first game.
I know. So the question was, did they air it out too much? I don't know. But I thought the game was going to be low scoring, but I thought Roderick Robinson would have been the difference maker in that game, and I thought Lincoln had a pretty good chance of winning that game.
La Jolla beat Scripps. Mount Carmel came back and beat Patrick Henry. Central beat Point Loma. Ramona beat Rancho Bernardo. I think it sticks out to you those games.
Central.
2-0, baby.
We got to talk about Central.
Central and Brawley coming out of the desert.
Yeah, those desert schools down there, they come to play some football. I don't know if they had extra time to practice or I don't know what it is down there, but both Central and Brawley look really good early in the fall. If they can continue the success they're having, throughout the season, I think they're going to be a tough team to beat come later when it gets colder in San Diego.
Let's talk about the top 10. San Diego Union Tribune had Carlsbad, Cathedral, Madison, Helix, Lincoln, Mission Hills, Mater Dei Catholic, Poway, Ramona, El Camino. For me, I went with Cathedral number 1, Carlsbad 2, Madison 3, Lincoln 4, Helix 5, Mission Hills 6, Mater Dei Catholic 7, Poway 8, Ramona 9, Torrey Pines 10. Off the air before we started, your top 10 was drastically different than mine. So
it's drastically different than everything.
And I'm ready to hear it. Here. Let's move the mic a little bit closer. I got to hear this clearly.
So last week, I just want to be clear here. Last week, I put my top 10 out on Twitter, and I got it for free, and I gave everybody that one for free, that you didn't have to tune in to the podcast in order to see it. Well, no more of that. If you want to criticize me, you're at least going to have to watch the podcast to find out what I say. If you do that, then you got all the right in the world to take to Twitter and criticize me all you want, okay? But you got to at least do that first. So, starting off, Ryland Jesse. I'm going to take Ryland Jesse and the Helix Highlanders number 1. Number 2, even with a tough loss to Bishop Alameda, that's bigger than most programs in San Diego, to be honest. I'm going to take Lincoln at 2. Mission Hills really impressed me with their win last week. They come in at 3. Madison with a big win last week, dominating on both sides of the ball. They come in at 4. At 5, wait a minute. Mission Hills comes in at 3. I'm sorry. Madison comes in at 4 at 2-0. Carlsbad with the win over Mater Dei jumps from 7 to 6 for me. Cathedral, the Dons. I don't think they figured out their identity yet. I see Wilbon. I see them trying to do the same things. They don't have the same athletes they did last year. That roster is not loaded with talent. Granted, they played Corona Centennial last year, and the score was even more lopsided. But I don't think this team is as good as last year's team.
Well, that's a fact.
So
that didn't take it. It's not a rocket science to tell you that.
They're 1-1. So I don't know with the youth they have. I think they've got a good secondary. The running game's a little suspect. The offensive line hasn't shown me that they're ready to dominate games yet. By the way, when I did put out my top 10 last week, I did get a text from John Montali like, "You don't really believe this, do you?" So I'm saying everybody, okay? So
man,
it's okay.
You just like to you just basically have a dartboard and just start throwing stuff around.
No, listen, but let's be honest, okay? Let me finish the top 10. I get Cathedral at 7, Ramona at 8. I'm very impressed with the way Ramona's playing football right now. I think they are my sleeper. They're going to knock off a big team and a big-time program this year, and everybody's going to go, whoa. Ramona's on the rise, and I don't think there's anybody who can beat them in D2. At number 9, Mater Dei. They fall to, what, they're 0-2?
Yes.
Haven't won a game yet?
No.
The best you're going to do is at 9. I mean, you barely lost to Carlsbad. I mean, that was so close. You know, I do think, in all fairness, I'll take to Twitter, that was a false start. The officials missed it. They blew it. That should not have been a touchdown.
It was a false start.
It was a false start. There's just no way you can get around that. That was a false start. Sorry, Carlsbad, Thad, I love you, but that was a false start.
Hey, they were down 21-0 early. I mean, you can't blame everything on the false start.
I get it.
Hey, that was also second overtime. You had an opportunity to win the game twice. in twice.
And then rounding out my top 10 is Poway. So we'll see what they're made of this week when they got to play Ramona. That's going to be a big game for me. That's the early game of the year, Ramona Poway. I think whoever wins that game is going to be, really, really, they're going to be one of the teams to beat.
We had all our teams are pretty much the same, except you took your Spotify playlist and hit shuffle on my top 10 and had a different order.
Well, I don't know.
All over the place.
You look at these, I look at different teams for different reasons and the leagues they play in, the strength of schedule, and their personnel. You can look at spreadsheets all you want to, but certain teams have certain tendencies. Certain teams can win big games. Certain teams have proven they can win big games. Certain teams can't win big games. And so you put them in situations, the coaching staff. This isn't just simply pick this, pick that, pick that. I mean, there's a reason, there's a method to the madness, believe it or not. That's why
I got to know the algorithm that you come up with.
It's not an algorithm, though. That's the thing. It's not an algorithm. It's just, these are my opinions based upon what I've seen of the teams that I've seen. And, the cool part about this is, we've been doing this every year for, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. But the part that gets me is it's always pretty much the same team, top 10 team.
It is. And every once in a while you get one team that has a good senior class that's in there. We're going to talk more about this with John Maffei when we come back. And then after that, we're going to dive into some of your questions that you've thrown out on social media, and then we'll get to the game picks. We're going to go take a quick break on the High School Football Podcast right here on 97 Through the Fan and on YouTube. All right, welcome back to the High School Football Podcast on 97 Through the Fan. Again, another big thanks to Todd Durkin for hooking us up on this great studio. And we now bring in one of our guests here, John Maffei from the San Diego Union Tribune. John, you join Coach and I each and every Friday, giving us a high school football recap, but, wanted a little bit more one-on-one podcast style sit down here talking high school football. Welcome to the podcast studio.
Good,
here.
thank you. This is really nice. It's a nice setup.
Yeah, it's great. And another big thank you again to Todd Durkin for helping us out on here. But let's start with week one. Obviously last week they had a week 0, and let's start with the game of the week, Carlsbad at Mater Dei, a game that goes into a couple overtimes. And, as much as there was a false start probably on that last play of the game, it's still standing anyway. And, Carlsbad gets a big win that they need for the Open. And then Mater Dei is now sitting on the outside looking in at this point.
Yes. That tackle eligible play, it sure looked like like there was motion, but it was so bad. Was everybody fooled? Were the officials fooled too?
Right.
So I don't know what what happened there, but even if they call that, then Carlsbad kicks the PAT, they go triple overtime, and who knows what happens.
Right.
But if it was in fact more, you'd like to see it happen.
Well, it's almost like the left tackle moved and then goes, "Oh crap, I just moved early," and then he kind of sits and then he's like, "Oh, nobody called anything," and then ran the play. Yeah. It's just, but that's just kind of an unfortunate thing. Obviously, we got the referee shortage, and I don't know if you have any update on that. Do they've gotten anybody to sign up for like the lower levels yet?
They started with 30 crews to start the year, and they now are up to 34. But so they've got 34 crews. They've got 4 more crews, but on any given week now, especially early in the season, until we get into like league play into week 5, 6, 7, 8,
right?
There are as many as 42 games,
right?
So yes, they've gotten more guys, but it's still not enough.
Well, sometimes, like even last week when we went up and played Centennial on the road on a JV game, there's only 3 officials.
Wow. Which
is, even more difficult to try to run a game. So I don't know if you've seen is there any type of crews where they kind of pare it down and you're only using like 3 or 4?
And that's one thing they didn't want to do. They didn't want to go, because JVs here go 4-man crews.
Right.
And then they add the referee, they add the white hat for the varsity game. but they said they did not want to go 4-man crews on varsity games, which would have given them a lot more crews.
Right.
And
might as well have the full crew do it right, and then have guys play on Thursday and Saturday. Then be like, oh well, we only have 4 officials this week.
And it hasn't worked out too badly. That I haven't heard too many complaints about the Thursday games.
Right.
And Saturday. Who knows? Pick your poison on Thursday. Would you rather go a day short or a day long, and then that makes your Sunday, if you're a coach, that much longer. So
I'll tell you what, I mean, after playing in a Saturday game, when you're used to Friday games, you're sitting there going like, well, I don't really like playing on Saturdays too much, because all of a sudden your weekend's gone like that.
Yes.
It's a little bit different in preparation for the next week.
Yeah, and that's the one day, most high school coaches actually get to breathe is a little bit on Sunday. And now if you play Saturday night, now you're going over film, and if you're married and you have kids and your wife wants to do something, and you feel drawn. Do I watch film, or do I go to the beach?
Let's talk about the North County game of the week from last week. According to us, Mira Mesa beat San Marcos 28-21. Cal Preps gave them a 3-point favorite. Mira Mesa ends up winning. We talked about this last week on the John Quintero show about San Marcos and kind of the trajectory that they're on with their new coaching staff. Great start to the season, beating RB, kind of come back down to earth a little bit against Mira Mesa. But, what'd you see out of the Marauders, on the reports? And what do you expect out of San Marcos going through Avocado League play?
I think, San Marcos is going to kind of be a mystery team because they're really young. They have a good young coach in Tom Carroll. I think they're on the right road with Tom. And Jason Texler is the well-traveled Jason Texler is back as his offensive coordinator. And I think if you've ever seen Jason Texler in the coach's room, it's like steam coming out of his ears, and he's drawing X's and O's and stuff on the board and confusing people with his genius. But I think they have a good coaching staff. They have good young players, and it's just a matter of, I think, consistency for them,
right?
Because it's there, and I think that consistency, lack of, probably showed a little bit against Mira Mesa, where Mira Mesa is a little bit more veteran team. Coaching staff is back for their second year there after Coach Tompe passed away last year. But Mira Mesa is a good team, and so that's not an embarrassing loss at all for San Marcos.
Oh no, absolutely not. Well, and they're a good team, and they played one of the better teams in Helix in week 1. They obviously just didn't have the horses to hang with Helix, but they're going to do some damage in their division nonetheless. Let's talk about Helix for a second. East County game of the week. Helix beat Otay 52-0. Helix was favored by 28 according to Cal Preps going into that game. Brad Burton inherited kind of a mess at Otay, and he's trying to put it all together in his first year as a head coach. A great assistant coach for a long period of time. Obviously a great player here in town. I know he's going to be able to get that thing rolling, but tough out of the gate, signing up to play Madison and then play Helix, two of the top teams in San Diego.
Yeah, it's funny. I was talking to Coach Doyle today at Cathedral Catholic and kidding him about who scheduled who drew up your schedule where you're playing De La Salle and Centennial and Chandler, and he laughs and he goes, me. Well, Brad Burton didn't. He inherited the schedule, so and it might be one of those years too. Otay Ranch traditionally has been a good team. This is a year where they're probably a very average team, and the schedule is just a little too tough for an emerging group of kids there. So if they I think they'll be okay once they get back into a schedule that's a little more fitting for them. Right,
and again, I mean, he inherited a lot of things where he had to clean up some stuff and kind of establish a program, and that takes a couple of years. And we talked about that with San Marcos trying to do it. Madison's done a pretty good job of that. As we move on to our city game of the week, they beat Steele Canyon 35-7. I mean, this is a Madison team that's basically been the exact same team since that 2020 spring season when they played a bunch of sophomores, and now they're rolling with those guys as seniors. I know they had some freshmen on that team, so those juniors and seniors have seen a lot of varsity experience compared to a lot of teams that they're going to play. And so far, they're off to a great start. Otay Ranch, again, not one of the best teams in San Diego. Steele Canyon is always going to be tough, but Madison's really shown that they could be a power in the top 5 and be a contender for the Open.
Yes, and Don Norcross from our staff, saw Madison play last week, and we talked, and And he goes, boy, they're for real. They got some guys.
Right.
And, I think, and what people don't realize, Madison is one of the smaller schools in the city.
It's really small. It's under 1,000 kids.
Under 1,000, I think, and they're more like in the 800-ish range. So, they're, and it's just, if you go to Madison, it's just in a really nice, blue collar neighborhood.
Right.
And where people probably have lived in their homes for 30 years. Their kids went to Madison in the 80s, and mom and dad are still in the house.
Right.
So they're just not getting a lot of turnover in homes there. But the kids they are getting are very good.
Centennial beats down on Cathedral 42-7. I thought that score was way closer than I initially thought it was going to be, based on what Cathedral had returning and what Centennial had returning. I don't know if you're able to watch Centennial in person. I was walking over to the press box to do the game, and some of the parents of non-football players are like, that looks like an NFL team over there. Everybody on the defensive line was over 285 pounds. That's just it's just on a notch above, in a Trinity League level team where, teams in San Diego, as good as they are, that's tough. That's a tough ask for anybody in San Diego. Even if you were to combine the best three teams in San Diego, it would be a tough task.
Yes. And there was a good story in the LA Times this week. Eric Sondheimer did a story with talking to the Centennial coaches and saying how Mater Dei, Santa Ana Mater Dei, has grown into mushroomed into this giant.
Yes.
And the Centennial coach going, hey, they've got 4 or 5 kids from Centennial that they got 4 or 5 of our kids playing at Mater Dei, and he goes, the Mater Dei's tentacles have gone out. And and they're taking kids from the Riverside area, and that's a pretty good schlep from Riverside to Santa Ana. So he wasn't necessarily complaining, but he was stating the fact that they're getting a lot of kids from out of the area. And I don't think Mater Dei recruits. I think their program recruits itself.
Well, it does. And Centennial is one of the biggest high schools in all of California. I mean, they got a ton of kids getting pumped into that school, which it's funny. You go up there and you go, where all these kids live? I mean, they run that whole Inland Empire goes through that school, and take a lot of kids out of Murrieta and Temecula. And, they kind of at the same point play by the same rules. But I will tell you this, teams like Centennial, St. John Bosco, Mater Dei, they go out of state and they're really putting the hammer on some teams like Mater Dei did against a really tough Bishop Gorman team that they were able to beat. And then St. John Bosco flexing the California muscle in the state of Texas in back-to-back years, going out and destroying Allen.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, that says a lot for California football that, whether you like those teams or not, you kind of have to root for them when they can go.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
When they can go into Texas.
When I was out there in Texas, it was always like, what is it was one time when I was working at TCU, I was going to help the special teams coordinator out and with some film breakdown, some other stuff with the GA. GA's like, all right, cool, let's go introduce yourself. And so we talked to the special teams coordinator, and he's like, oh, where are you from? And I said, California. And then he said, what the F do you know about football? And I was just kind of like, wow. I mean, it's like, gee, I mean, there's good. I was like, have you not heard of these schools? Like we got good football out here too. And it's fun to, I love being in Texas. I love their football. I love their Americana and high school football. Friday Night Lights out there is great. But this kind of like centralized arrogance that they have, it's kind of fun to see our teams go down there and beat their ass. Yeah.
And when I was working at San Diego State, we played like every Texas directional school. We played North Texas, East Texas, West Texas, Texas El Paso, Texas Texas Southern, Texas Arlington. But the point is that we had a group that liked to go to whatever the best high school game on Friday night. So we'd go to a game, and some of the stadiums that they're playing in.
Oh, it's awesome.
It's just, we went to a Texas 6A semifinal game. And it looked like Texas and Arkansas.
Oh yeah,
in burnt orange and red.
Right.
And they were, we got there an hour before the game, and we got the seats in the way up in the upper deck, and in a 35,000 seat stadium. So,
you only get a couple of those out here, but I went to a South Lake Carroll game when Quinn Ayers was there a couple of years ago, back in 2020, in the fall season when we weren't playing football, and they were. Place was packed. I mean, the stadium was packed. Everybody was doing what they needed to do to be at the game, but they had a video board. There was no track in the stadium. They had 2 brand new cars parked on the thing. on the field from the local dealership sponsor, like it was a college. The PA announcer sounded like he was doing it for the Dallas Cowboys. Wow. I mean, they had promotion in the stadium where it was like dirtiest car in the parking lot wins one free year of car washes.
Wow.
And I felt like I was at an Aztec game. Yeah. It was insane.
And every little town, if you're on the freeway or the highways, the back roads in Texas, every little town has a billboard as you drive into town. And, whether it's, McKinney or, Amarillo or wherever, they'll have a billboard, stating their team and how many league championships they've won.
Welcome to Panther country, stuff like that.
Yeah, kind of like you're going into Ramona, except on steroids. It's just huge.
But that was going to bring up, I mean, and we're going to have to take a quick break here just based on our recording capacities. But, there's only a couple teams in San Diego where you get that Americana Friday Night Lights feel. Ramona sticks out to me as one. Valley Center sticks out to me as another. And El Cap, the way that they kind of take over Lakeside and then they go run through the town. I mean, those, aside from kind of those three, at least off the top of my head, I mean, you don't really get too many of those Friday Night Lights, Americana type games or teams.
Not too many. Oceanside, when John Carroll was there, had that feel, and they've kind of lost it a little bit. But you're right that there aren't a whole lot of them, but it's fun when you do experience it.
Yeah, and some of I think a lot of schools now in San Diego have done a great job of putting on an event for the games. I mean, at Cathedral, it's great. It's nothing like it was when I was a student there. In what they do to pump a lot of kids in there, and one of my favorite games ever is obviously Saints Cathedral, but I love playing on the road at Mesa because you show up, you're driving in just from a player's perspective on their buses. And the whole parking lot is loaded with Saints alum tailgating. And they got their RVs and the flags. And it feels like college game day when you're going into Mesa College. And it's outstanding. I had a couple other experiences like that with Cathedral in terms of playing Del Oro was like that. And then when we played Vista Murrieta my senior year, there was about 15,000 people at that game, all from Murrieta. Yeah. Like they brought the whole town involved for that game.
Yeah, and you're right, Valley. I don't know if people remember. I can't even remember the year, but the Vista Brawley championship game in Old Qualcomm Stadium, and out in that was like a 3A game at 1:00 in the afternoon. Drew like 15,000 people.
That's awesome.
And and the big boys didn't draw that for the Open Division game that night.
Let's talk about the top 10 that came out. Obviously. Now, the best thing about the top 10, and you talked about it last week, you got about 30 people that vote in it, and it's such a wide range that it kind of eliminates the bias, obviously, with different people being associated with different schools and then different people also being against schools. The UT Writers Poll this week, Carlsbad, number 1, 17 first place votes, Cathedral, number 2 with 11, Madison with 1 first place vote, Helix at 4 with 1 first place vote, Lincoln in the top 5, then Mission Hills, Mater Dei, Poway, Ramona, El Camino. I think most people had kind of those 10 teams because you look at the received votes, there's only like 3 teams that got votes, and it was a very small number. But when you started to get all the ballots in, what was the most shocking thing to you in this week of the top 10?
This week was pretty good. Last week I was stunned because I had a voter that voted Cathedral 8th.
Right.
And, really? But like you said, that's overcome because we have enough people that are voting.
Right.
So, I can, and he had a valid excuse. He had a reason. And, and I didn't call him on, but I had to call him about something else. So, we talked about it. But this week I was a little surprised that 4 teams got first place votes. That
I saw that. Yeah, I agree on that.
And I'm kind of glad. Madison's played really well. Helix has played really well. So and as I'm tallying up the votes, I'm going, boy, this is going to be really close. And then there was everybody sends it in, I print them out, and then I total them up on Monday morning. But it was like 8-6 in the first place votes, and then all of a sudden there was a run of Carlsbad votes. So, I wasn't surprised, but it's like a 50-point difference between Carlsbad and Cathedral, and that surprised me a little bit.
Yeah, it is surprising, especially since they've already played the same team, and Cathedral beat the team by 2 touchdowns in regulation, and then Carlsbad needed a false start 2-point conversion to beat the team, and all of a sudden they got 17 first-place votes. And again, I think a lot of it has to do with the thing that's difficult is obviously you got to pay attention to you have to pay attention to how good other teams are outside of the county. It's not just paying attention to the teams in the county where, maybe one or two schools are playing a southern section school or some random school in Yuma, and you're trying to go, is that team good? Are they not good? But now it's like everybody plays out of town. I got to pay attention as a voter to, all right, now how good is this team in the southern section before I compare them to, maybe a school like Cathedral played. Like I got to sit there and go, is Centennial and Ayala the same school? And the answer is no. But now I got to do all this additional research into doing the top 10.
Yeah, and it's and talking to Joe Hines, our San Diego commissioner, those out of town games, play havoc at pairings time because how do where does Ayala fit? Would they be an open Division 1 or Division 2 team in San Diego? Where do they fall? So how do we rate them? So it's
that is a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
Just I built a spreadsheet. I got everybody's schedule in there. I got everybody's win-loss based on what CalPreps does with the CIF formula in there. Kind of do this at the end of the season projection of who's going to make it where. And the hardest thing, just because of how vague it is, and the fact that the southern section doesn't have divisions, they don't have divisions at the end of the season, is like, what division is this school and what record are they going to have at the end of the year that impacts the CIF rankings, which I've been on record. I disagree with the CIF rankings. I don't think it's very valid. The coaches voted for it. I don't have a vote, so it doesn't really matter. CIF's just doing what it takes to appease the coaches. But at the same time, it's like, and everybody knows I'm a CalPreps homer at this point, but CalPreps has every team in the country into their database to determine who's good and who's not. And that's what they used to run. And now you're going to run this other thing. To me, I'd feel like we got rid of such a simpler system for something that's just going to cause CIF a lot of headaches.
Yes. And the CIF, to their credit, they give coaches in every sport the option, you guys pick how you want.
This is what they voted for. This is that CIF didn't say we want you to do this. It was, what do you guys want to do, and we'll enforce.
I've been in on those pairings meetings, and coaches are, this stinks. This the power ring, and whether it was Jerry Schneep or Joe Hines or Dennis, they just go, hey, not the time. This isn't you guys voted on this,
right?
At your next meeting you can vote it out.
Right.
But for now, you voted this in. This is the way it is.
Start convincing some of the other teams and the other coaches that we need to do it this way.
Yeah.
El Camino gets in the top 10 for the first time, which I think is deserving for them being 2-0. I didn't personally have them in there. My top 10 was Cathedral, Carlsbad, Madison, Lincoln, Helix, Mission Hills, Mater Dei, Poway, Ramona, and Torrey Pines. Very close to what most of the writers put together. For me, with just Cathedral, they've won 15 straight games against San Diego teams, and until somebody beats them, I'm going to leave them in that spot. I'm not going to punish them for their insane schedule that Sean Doyle decided to put together. Carlsbad, I think, is the second best team anyway. I really like Madison. I think Madison's the sleeper this year for a lot of things. They can wreak havoc on the Western League with how they play their games.
Yeah, and that's exactly my 1, 2, 3 was Cathedral, Carlsbad, Madison.
And then I go with Lincoln and Helix, and I'm going to give Lincoln credit for playing Bishop Alamany over Helix playing Otay Ranch. It is what it is. It usually works itself out at the end of the day anyway. And then, Mission Hills, John, I mean, they're a team I think they know how to pick the right schedule for the CIF rankings, because they pick 3 teams that they can beat that are going to have good records out of town, and they're going to get big points for it. And so a team like Mission Hills is going to get the same credit beating Lawndale as Cathedral would beating De La Salle, and those are 2 totally different teams, but that's how the CIF rankings work. And credit to Coach Hauser at Mission Hills. I mean, based on what I have laid out, they're in line to get the number 1 seed in the Open when it's all said and done. And
they could, I think, and I've told a number of people, don't sleep on Mission Hills, because they're very good. They're very well coached. They schedule and they schedule good teams. Those, Lawndale, Ayala, the teams they play are good. They're good Southern Section teams, and to their credit, and they beat them. And they're not afraid to go on the road. They'll do a home and home contract with those schools. So they're not afraid to. I think last year the year they traveled to Palos Verdes Peninsula, wherever they travel.
Oh, yeah.
And, Coach Hauser just goes, I had no idea the school was this far out.
John, appreciate the time as always. Thanks for coming up to or coming down to the studio from North County. Really appreciate it, and look forward to doing this again.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I had fun.
All right, thanks again to John Maffei for joining us today. Really appreciate him from the San Diego Union Tribune. Got to bring in all these different guests and stuff to join our show, and we're the voice of high school football. We're trying to spread the love everywhere. I'm not trying to compete with anybody at this point. Bring everybody in, get their opinions voiced.
I'll talk to anybody about football that wants to talk to me about football.
That's right. And let's talk about some of our fan mail. Let's start with some of the big questions coming in on our fan mail here. We'll start with Meech chiming in at 619 Meech. He throws out their impact of out-of-section games. Saints forfeiting this week's upcoming game. Besides themselves, who can shock Cathedral, Mater Dei, Carlsbad, and or Lincoln, games that we want to see broadcast on KUSI this season. Impact of out-of-section games. I think in the Cal Preps world, there's an impact. I think in the CIF rankings, I don't think is as big of an impact, just because it's a lot of generic conversation. And the other thing too, like we just talked about with John Maffei about what they're doing at CIF, it's their biggest problem is trying to figure out, well, is that team a D1 team or a D2 team? They're trying to figure it out on paper instead of having a formula to do it. So the impact, I don't think it's that big of an impact that involves San Diego. I will say this though, it's a bad look for us that we can't beat anybody out of town right now, because we can't.
Time out.
Because we can't.
Listen, I couldn't disagree with you more.
All right.
I think it's absolutely fantastic for San Diego football to see these programs scheduling out of state or out of city games.
Well, I agree with you on that. That's not what I'm saying.
Corona Centennials. I love to see the Bishop Almanis. I love the fact that Mater Dei, who was a D3 team last year, has put some heavy hitters on their schedule this year. Do I think it has an impact? Absolutely has an impact. Now, it may not be in the rankings or the stats or the schedules, but when we start playing tougher teams, all the football in San Diego gets better. Everybody gets better when we start playing better football. See, I think for a number of years, everybody else in the state looked down at San Diego and said, nobody in San Diego can play football. You're not on our level. And then once in a while, you'd have a team like Cathedral.
Or Oceanside, or Helix.
One of the top 4 power programs for like 10 or 15 years. We play one of those and beat them occasionally. And now you see more teams. It's not just your Saints or your Helix or your Cathedrals. Now we've added Mater Dei. You've added teams like Point Loma has played somebody out of town. Like, there's different teams doing it now, which I think strengthens the level of competition in football in San Diego. Listen, I'm not all about the statistics or the numbers, but I do think our football in San Diego can compete with anybody in the state of California, regardless of where they rank them. I don't think I could say that 5, 7, 8, 9 years ago, but I definitely say today we can compete with anybody. We're not at the turning page where we dominate other sections, but we're competing. There weren't a lot of blowouts in those games. When we played the out-of-town games, unless you want to count like Corona Centennial, but let's face it, that's like one of the top.
They're blowing everybody out
in the nation.
They won 85-0 the week before.
So, I mean, at least we can put up 85, right? They didn't put 85 on.
They didn't put 71 up on half.
That's insane.
They put up 71 points on San Diego.
This, kudos to the Verlaines of the world, the Sean Doyles of the world. Talking about Saints, listen, everybody on Twitter can give Ron Gladnick all the crap they want to. Listen, I'm a head football coach, and I got 21 varsity guys. I'm starting 7 freshmen. I'm trying to make it to the season. So it's easy for you to sit in the stands and play armchair quarterback, but I'm going to defend the head coach's decision to sit his team this week. I mean, apparently he tried to contact this team 5 months ago when he found out how many, freshmen he was going to have to start, and told the guy, hey, go find another game. Matter of fact, I'll find you 2 games. And they turned both of them down. So the fact that everybody on Twitter is giving this guy a hard time, look, it's his first year at Saints. The program is in a major reconstruction genre. I want good football. I'm not going to run 7 freshmen out there to get their teeth kicked in against a powerhouse Rancho Santa Margarita football team. Hats off to Gladney for standing up for his players.
I disagree with you. I'd play the game regardless. We'd play the game with 13 guys. I mean, that's just how it is. I disagreed with it when Lincoln didn't play the game, and I disagree with Saints not playing the game. But I will say I understand why. I understand why. I'm not going to sit there and go, I can't believe he's not doing that. I understand why, but I just disagree with it. I would play. And but you see it. I mean, you see comments all the time. You saw a lot of comments saying, hey, I understand, but like we would have played. And it's just a different opinion on that. And that's his decision.
I
get it.
Hold on. I had a 14-year-old son that played freshman football, and on kickoff, the kid got knocked out. It's a little different when it's your kid out there and gets hit so hard that he pisses himself.
Yeah.
Okay?
Welcome to football.
Yeah, but I'm not going to go put a kid at 14 years old who doesn't have any preparation. He's played, 2 varsity games, one against Oceanside and one against El Camino, and send him to one of the top 50 programs in the country to get his teeth kicked in at 14 years old?
They got other players in that program.
They got 21 guys on varsity.
Yeah, they got other guys on the sophomore, and they got other guys. They can make it work. They also can show up to Santa Margarita and be like, "Hey, look, we got 26 guys. Like, as soon as you guys start acting like, you know what, we're out of here." They do that all the time. I see that all the time in high school football now. So to me, I understand why, but I disagree. I would have played, and you know what? We would have got our ass kicked, and at any point in time. Okay, I thought like some kids can't. We'd figure it out, and I try to do it, but we're going to try to put a game on.
They're not ready. I'm not putting them in that.
Besides themselves, who can shot Cathedral, Mater Dei, Carlsbad, and or Lincoln? Helix?
I think there's a few teams.
I mean, Helix comes to mind. I mean, that's the top 4
one.
plus Helix.
That's just one.
Madison?
Who they play in the Honor Bowl?
Helix?
Yeah,
They're not in the Honor Bowl.
Cathedral.
Cathedral's got Chandler.
Yeah, I don't think Cathedral's beating Chandler.
I think we're talking about in section
in San Diego?
Because they ain't beating De La Salle either.
Listen, I'm not gonna go on record and say this because I've already gotten the text from John Montali, but they're not losing to Madison.
The Cathedral's not losing to Madison? But that would be a team that could beat one of those 4 teams.
Yeah.
I think Madison can beat them. I think Madison has the potential to beat Cathedral. I think they have the potential to beat Mater Dei. I think they have the potential to beat Carlsbad. I think they beat Lincoln.
I don't think it's a good matchup for Madison because of Madison's style of offense and not being able to control the clock. I think they're a big play team, similar to what Mater Dei is. I think their defense is a little stronger, but the game plan of Sean Doyle, run, grind. I don't think these juniors have the tenacity to go 4 quarters of getting punched in the mouth. Eventually they're going to get tired. I don't see Madison beating Cathedral this year.
If I had to pick 2 teams that could beat those 4 teams, it'd be Helix to beat Madison. That's it. It's a very short list.
You don't think Lincoln can beat them?
Lincoln is listed on one of those 4 teams. Yeah, Lincoln. I said aside from those 4 teams, who could be? I think maybe Madison and maybe Helix.
That's kind of
but that's all 4 of them.
The sad part about that is we're talking about a team that's not nearly what they were last year. This is not a state. I mean, I look at the roster and what they're working with and the athletes they have at Cathedral. This isn't half, and this is just my opinion. I don't think they're half as good as last year's team.
They're not.
And yet we're talking about maybe only a handful of teams in the county that could beat them.
The state of the county right now.
Is that the program of the players?
It's the state of the city right now. You got a lot of high schools with not a lot of kids at them. A lot of high schools with not a lot of kids at them.
Yeah.
And a lot of the talent is at 4 schools.
It's true.
And it's not just talent, though. It's linemen.
What about coaches?
A lot of the coaches are at 4 schools. I mean, look at some of the staffs that some of the schools have. It's gigantic. Okay. But it's linemen. We know it's linemen. Yeah. What do those 4 schools have right now? Linemen. What do the other schools do not have? Linemen. Yep. Games are won in the trenches. Think about from this perspective. What is the biggest school in San Diego?
Isn't that El Camino there?
San Marcos. It's like 3,500 kids. You know how many kids Allen has in Texas? 7,000.
That's insane.
So it's different. Like it's San Diego. It's like I don't know. And I wanted to kind of bring this up. Schools? I think it's oversaturated. But how about
way off topic?
But how about this? Like I'd like to know. This is for a topic for next week. I would like to know how many just high school age kids do we have in San Diego?
I don't know. That's a great question. What'd you find out? You're a stat guy.
That's what I'm saying out loud. Somebody watching the show can figure it out. But I just feel like we just don't have that many kids.
San Diego County Board of Education. How many high school students do we have in the county? Somebody DM me, him, somebody, let us know.
But think about it. It's like watch the PPR. Look at some of these teams. They're very small. We just don't have the number. And in Orange County,
they're very bad.
And in Orange County, these teams are gigantic.
Yeah, no kidding.
And their schools are huge.
Yeah,
so it's like
85 kids. Okay, I get.
So like I don't I don't understand. I don't know what.
What's the next mailbag question?
What is the best way for players to stay engaged with college recruiters that they met during college visits and and camps? Also, can you spend time discussing scholarship players can apply for that are not athletically based, whether merit scholarship or other types?
Okay, that's a lot. I'm gonna try to tackle a little portion.
So that's all for college.
I'm gonna try to tackle a little portion of it, okay? And I'm gonna speak to this because I work with Montel Allen, SDF and L magazine, and more recently, my stepson went to a Division II. So I want to speak to this a little bit. Two things I care about, and I think the first one is how do you get recognized? It's film.
It's film.
It's bottom line film. I'm gonna give you my quick and easy, down and dirty.
Sending it out to everybody.
And here's the crazy part. I don't want to, if you're a wide receiver, I don't want to see film of you blocking 30 yards downfield, to be honest.
No, you got to get your best play.
Here's my, Brady, this is what I want to tell every kid about film. You got 9 plays to get on my board. And here's the deal. Your first 3 plays have to make me want to watch the next 3 plays.
Your first play has to make me watch the next play.
Your second 3 plays have to make me watch the next 3. If you can get to 9 plays, and I'm saying to myself, I want that kid, you're going to be on my board. That's the bottom line. When it comes to film, no music.
So after you send the film, you've had contact with the coach.
Twitter.
How do you? That's what I'm
Twitter.
saying. DMs.
You got to be on Twitter. You got to be on DMs. And kids,
be smart on Twitter.
Be smart on your Twitter. The mistake that I see a lot of guys are, I'm a D1 guy. I'm not talking to D2 coaches.
Talk to everybody.
The bottom line is you better talk to everybody, because if your D1 dreams don't come true for any reason, whether it's grades, mom, dad, color of the uniform.
You can't burn bridges.
You don't burn bridges. You can burn bridges.
You can't do it. You can't do it if you want to play football.
Okay, that's my best advice. Work on your film. Make sure it looks good. You got 9 plays. You're confident. Have your coach look at it. Have a couple of people look at it. Shoot. If you're watching this and you're really interested, send me your film. You may not like what I have to say, but I'm going to tell you the truth.
And if you get good grades,
it's a lot easier to recruit a player with.
Here's the deal. But not only that, let's say you're talking about a D1 school. Let's say they don't have any more scholarships left. Let's say they want you to go to the school. We're going to give you a preferred walk-on. We get that all the time, right?
Yep.
I mean, there are tons of preferred walk-ons. If your GPA is high,
you're getting academic money.
Then all of a sudden the school's going to give you money.
Right.
So now you're technically getting a scholarship, but it doesn't count towards the athletic program, and they love you.
Yeah.
Because you're paying your way to school.
Yep.
And it doesn't cost them anything.
There's a prime example right there. A kid named Derek Wood, wide receiver from Cathedral last year, got into USD. Okay, they told him we didn't have any more spots available. Kid got in there on academics, and then what happened? 1 or 2 receivers go down in the summer camp. Kid gets an invite. Kid's gonna probably make the roster.
Let's talk about some games because we're running out of time. We're holding up the gym at this point in time. Right. People don't work out at 8:00 around these parts, I guess.
Gotcha.
So let's go to the games of the week. I think
let's do pick'ems.
We're going pick'ems. We're no spread this week because I don't have time to go through it, and Cal Prep spreads are not up to date until October anyway. First game, Poway Ramona.
I'm taking Ramona.
I'm taking Ramona too.
Butler's going to have a good game.
You want to elaborate on that while I find the rest of the games?
I think that Ramona's a little too disciplined. Their trenches are really tough, both on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. They're just too physical. I think Poway will. They're not going to be able to hold up under that kind of pressure.
Thursday game, San Marcos at Steele. That's intriguing.
I'm taking Steele. Major Givens.
I'm taking Major Givens.
200 yards, 4 tubs.
Mater Dei Catholic, Red Mountain at a 4:00 start at Cathedral.
I got no idea who in the heck Red Mountain is, so I'm going to go. Let's go Crusaders.
Cal Preps favors the Crusaders by 2 touchdowns. I'll take those. I'll take those guys as well.
Come on, boys, Crusaders! You gotta get that first win. Let's go.
Oceanside at Granite. 0-2 Oceanside, 1-1 Granite.
Anybody got coin?
I got Granite.
I
got Granite. It's a long drive.
Okay, I'm gonna take Oside.
All right, fair enough. Valley Center at Mount Carmel.
Mount Carmel.
I'll take the Fighting Gilsters.
I don't even know what that is.
Coach Gilsters, their head coach. He's been there forever. Valley Center. Patrick Henry at Scripps.
I'm taking Patrick Henry.
I'm taking Henry too.
You know why?
Why?
Props out to Jax, but his high school career is over, and I don't think the Falcons are going to be the same team without him.
I don't think so either.
I think
Do they win a game?
No.
I don't think so either.
I think their best chance was against La Jolla.
I thought so as well.
And I think that, they're in the Western now, right?
Yeah.
It's only going to get a whole lot tougher from here.
Right. Mountain View at Helix. Mountain View's an Arizona school.
I'll take Helix.
We're just gonna roll with Helix. All right, cool. Inglewood at Carlsbad.
Yeah, can I say this on camera? Inglewood.
I think
I just always wanted to say that. Inglewood.
every time you say stuff like that, I immediately my skin gets so pale, and I immediately go, "What is he going to say?"
Is that the ethnicity of me coming out?
Oh man, okay. All right.
Inglewood.
I'm also taking Inglewood. I'm not going to say it like that though. Otay Ranch at Mira
I would
Mesa.
love to hear you say it. Inglewood.
Maybe next week. Otay Ranch at Mira Mesa. Mira Mesa as well.
Aurelio, go out there and win that game. Win that game for Chris Thompson.
RBV at Vista.
RBV.
I don't think Vista's going to be
Dude,
close.
have you heard about that kid? RBV senior running back, Angelino Trapasso?
No.
Number 4 in the state of California right now. 2 games, over 500 yards rushing.
How many yards did he get against Vista this week?
How many yards?
200.
230.
230?
230.
Over under 235.
Under.
230. La Costa Canyon at San Clemente. Is any San Diego school going to beat San Clemente? The Steele Canyon beat San Clemente late in the year?
No.
Absolutely not.
Go Tritons.
St. Bonaventure at Lincoln.
Let's go high.
I got the Hornets in that one. I think they win.
Hey, Bonnie?
RB at Torrey. Battle of 2 teams looking for their first win.
Where's from now? Torrey Pines?
Yeah.
Torrey Pines.
2 touchdowns? 3 touchdowns?
2.
2 touchdowns. Del Norte at San Pasqual.
Del Norte.
I'm taking Del Norte. Lee Cole's doing a great job up there.
Dude, they beat UC last week.
If they win this week, they're favored in all their games going forward.
He's got those boys rolling.
They might go 9-1 losing to Poway.
Listen. When did we get to a point where an academic school, let's be honest, that school was built as an academic powerhouse up there in the North County, is beating legitimate athletic programs?
They beat Poway?
Not yet. Lee's
Yeah.
close. Lee's very close.
And then the Saturday game, we got a couple. Madison against Desert Vista.
Madison.
San Diego at Mission Bay.
Oh, I'm going with Bucks. Coach Tate going to have their boys ready.
Westview at Escondido. Ooh,
Escondido.
that's a game. Mar Vista at Morse.
Wait, did you say that's a game?
That's a game. That's a game.
That's a coin
Jeez.
That's a game. That's a coin flip.
That's a game right there.
I don't
Oh
think
my
I've seen either one of
God.
those 2 teams, even on PPR this year.
Escondido won last week. Thank God. They get out of here.
Get
Poor Brooke is trying to shut down Fitness Quest.
Sorry.
Let's get out of here. Chris, I'm Braden. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy some high school football.
Let's go.